If gambling was about money, quitting would be easy. Like, I skipped Chipotle guac because it was too expensive and a ripoff while having way more money live on a bet while I'm in line. That's when I knew this wasn't a spending problem. Again, my name's Joe. I'm in recovery from problem gambling. My last bet was April 16th, 2024. And if you've ever wondered why just stop doesn't work, this video will explain why. Most people think gambling is about money and risk. And to be fair, for normal gambling, yeah, that's true. You put money down, you accept the risk, and whatever happens, happens. You lose, you're annoyed. You win, you're happy, and you move on. But problem gambling is way different. And there's a moment, and it's hard to see from the outside where gambling stops being about risk and starts being about belief. That's the line most people don't know exists. For me, gambling stopped feeling like something I did for fun and started feeling like something I had to manage, not to win big, but just to prove something to myself. At the peak of my problem gambling, I wasn't chasing jackpots. I wasn't even chasing wins. I was just chasing control. And that's where the money part starts to confuse people. Because instead of being reckless with money, I actually became more careful with it everywhere except gambling, obviously. I stopped spending on small things. I passed on dinners. I said no to plans. I cut out the extras. So no guac, no impulse purchases, no little indulgences. Not because I was being responsible, but because I wanted more money available to gamble with. That's the part that people don't understand. From the outside, that sounds irrational, but from the inside, it felt logical. I wasn't bad with money. I was strategic, just in service of my gambling. But again, I'd have way more money live on a bet than I'd ever spend on myself in real life. And at that time, it didn't really feel reckless. It just felt intentional because gambling wasn't competing with spending, it was just replacing it. And then something else happened that made everything worse. When I did actually win, I'd suddenly start thinking about spending again. Not because I had more money, but because it didn't feel like real money. It felt like gambling money. It felt like I was buying things with casino winnings and not with my own money, even though I was in debt. It's sort of like I was playing with house money, so spending felt harmless or temporary or even imaginary. And the truth was, 15 minutes later, it was usually gone anyways, either right back on another bet or erased so fast it never had time to even feel real. That's when I realized the problem wasn't just losing money, it was that money itself had stopped feeling real. And at that point, this wasn't about money anymore. This was a dopamine system. And not in a dramatic, chaotic way, just in this quiet, functional way that nobody had any idea there was a problem. Because again, gambling wasn't about winning or losing. It was about that cycle of anticipation, the possibility of winning, the relief I felt when a bet was placed, and ultimately just escaping. My brain learned something very specific. It learned that stress could be interrupted, that boredom could be erased, and that uncomfortable emotions didn't have to be felt all the way through. If something felt off, gambling could smooth it out. If something felt empty, gambling could fill the space. If something felt overwhelming, gambling could narrow my focus. And once your brain learns that, money just becomes secondary. Because really, money's just the entry fee into the system. That's why quitting isn't about willpower. It's not about wanting it enough. You don't quit a dopamine system just because you understand it's bad. You quit when you understand what it's replacing. For a long time, it didn't even feel like I was gambling against the casino or even the sports books. It really just felt like I was gambling against myself. I was just trying to prove I could make whatever I deposited last as long as possible, that I could be disciplined, that I could be controlled, and ultimately that I was different. That's where I'd start to set rules like one bet a day, betting smaller units, limiting my chasing losses, no late night bets, no emotional plays. And for a couple of days, it usually would work. And that's one of the most dangerous parts about problem gambling because it just reinforces the belief that you're in control and it convinces you the system isn't the problem. You just need better rules. But then the inevitable always happened. I'd break one rule and then another, and then I'd start chasing how good it felt to not be losing. And suddenly I wasn't managing money anymore. I was protecting a belief. As long as there was money in the account, the story could continue. I hadn't failed yet. I hadn't been proven wrong yet. I still had a shot at fixing it. And that's why a problem gambler never feels broke the way other people do. As long as there's a dollar left, there's belief. This belief you can turn it into something, belief that you can make it last for a month instead of a day, or belief that this time will be different. The second that account hit zero, that belief collapsed. And the collapse is terrible because now the money is real. The loss is real, the fantasy is over, and that's why walking away doesn't feel like safety for a problem gambler. Walking away feels like you're just pulling the plug because quitting forces finality. And finality is terrifying when gambling has been replacing how you cope. That's also why losing can feel easier than quitting, because losing still lets you believe you can fix it next time. Quitting doesn't. Quitting means sitting with the discomfort that gambling was covering up. For me, gambling replaced stillness, it replaced boredom, it replaced silence, it replaced being alone with my thoughts. It gave my brain something to chew on so I didn't have to feel what was underneath. So when people say, "Why didn't you just stop?" what they're really asking is, "Why didn't you give up the thing that helped you cope?" And until you understand that, none of the advice makes sense. You don't quit gambling by understanding it's bad. You quit by understanding what it was doing for you. And once you see that, everything changes. If this video made sense to you, you're not weak, you're not broken, and you're not alone. Again, this channel exists to explain the things most people never do, and thanks for watching.